Coucou les amis! Hey friends, it's Camden and today we're talking about foreign language speaking anxiety. So we've all probably had a moment, whether we're beginning language learners or advanced speakers, when we've practiced and practiced, but when it finally came time to say something, nothing came out. So this phenomenon happens to pretty much all language learners, and it's specific to foreign language speaking. So a little bit about me. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Camden. I am an English teacher living in France, and I make videos about my life as an expat, culture, language learning, and sometimes my travels. But today we're talking about foreign language speaking anxiety, and this is actually the topic of my research paper I did for my master's last year. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to revisit it, but also I thought it'd be useful information for all of you because, you know, this happens to a lot of people. And so we're going to take a little look about what exactly foreign language speaking anxiety is, where it comes from, and tips to overcome it and feel more confident speaking. So as I mentioned before, foreign language speaking anxiety is an anxiety specific to speaking a foreign language. And it looks different for everyone. So maybe your heart might start beating faster, maybe you'll get sweaty, maybe you'll start slurring your words, or nothing might even come out. It looks different for everyone, but it can happen to a lot of people. I've been speaking French for over 10 years now, and it still happens to me sometimes. And now I'm learning Spanish and I'm experiencing it all over again. So there are a couple of different reasons why we might have this foreign language speaking anxiety. One of them can be beliefs we have about ourselves as learners. So maybe you think that, oh, I took Spanish in high school and now I'm gonna start learning German, but I don't know, like I wasn't very good at it then, so I don't think I'm very talented in languages, so I'm probably not gonna do that well. So if you have these beliefs about yourself that you're not a good language student, you're going to be less likely to want to speak and practice, and that can definitely affect your speaking, which is kind of sad but true. Another reason could be your beliefs about the language itself. For example, you've heard that Spanish might have really difficult grammar. So maybe when you speak Spanish, you're worried about making a grammatical error and you're afraid of making mistakes. So you really don't want to practice speaking because you're afraid you're going to fail. And that fear of making a mistake is going to inhibit your progress. Another factor is beliefs that other people, like your peers and even maybe your language teacher, have about the language itself. So maybe your language teacher thinks that Japanese is really easy and simple and logical, but you don't, so that there might be a clash there, which can be really frustrating as a student. And maybe your peers might think that, oh, you know, Italian is so easy to pronounce, like, and if they might laugh if they hear someone with a strong accent, but so that could have an impact on you too. So, oh, like they all think Italian is easy to pronounce, but I don't. So, but if they hear me speaking and they hear me struggling, they're going to judge me. So that fear of judgment from others also plays a strong role in your confident speaking. Also, lack of preparation is a factor as well. This can happen even if you have practiced a lot, but if you haven't really practiced a lot, if you don't know your vocabulary and you're trying to speak, you're not going to be able to succeed because you're grasping for words. But again, foreign language speaking anxiety can happen to all of us no matter our preparation level. So now that we've spoken a little bit about what foreign language speaking anxiety is and where it comes from, I want to give you some tips on how to overcome this anxiety and feel more confident speaking another language. And these are tips that I've used myself as a language learner and tips that I tell my students in my English speaking classes. So the first one is self-evaluation and reflection. So if you really want to tackle this foreign language speaking anxiety, you kind of have to take a look at yourself and your own learning to really understand it. So maybe it could be grammar. Maybe you're really worried about speaking perfectly and you kind of have to evaluate, okay, why am I so concerned about grammar? Is it really that important? Like, learning mistakes is a normal part of language learning, so you have to kind of be okay with that. If you make a mistake, you're going to learn from that and progress. But if you're too afraid to speak because you're not going to make a mistake, if you're too afraid to speak because you think you'll make a mistake, you're not going to progress in your speaking at all. Or maybe you think that your accent is bad and you're worried about that. So we really have to think about what your strengths and weaknesses are, why you're scared. Are you afraid of making a mistake? Are you afraid of others' judgments? What it is. So if you kind of know what your fears are, you can kind of begin to understand them. Next is motivation. So why are you even learning this language? If you have a positive intrinsic, so an internal motivation like, I really want to travel and discover new cultures, and that's why I'm learning Spanish, because I really want to take a trip to South America one day and visit all these countries and have wonderful new experiences. That can really be a strong motivator. But maybe extrinsic or external motivation like, oh, I don't want to be judged by my peers, or I really want to get a good grade, those can work, but they're not as lasting and they're not as strong as reasons for yourself. So you really have to figure out a reason for yourself, like you want to travel, or you really want this internship and you need English to speak in this internship. So figure out really why you're learning this language. And if you're not excited about learning this language, find something you're excited about. Maybe you want to discover a new show on Netflix. Maybe you can connect to other people by speaking this language. So figure out what motivates you and let that be the driving factor and help push you forward. And, you'll think less about the stresses and think more about why you really want to do this. Okay, so speaking of positive things, another tip could be to practice self-affirmations. So these are little statements about yourself that can help grow your confidence. So you could say them out loud, or you could write them in a little journal like, I am capable of learning Japanese, or I will not let my fear of making mistakes hold me back, or I am an excellent student and nothing is stopping me from learning German. So these are just some examples, and if you repeat them, you'll start believing them. However, not everyone is a big fan of self-affirmation and might think they're a little bit cheesy and over positive. So another alternative to that could be self-interrogation. So again, this is related to self-reflection, as I mentioned before, but this is a more neutral, realistic alternative to self-affirmation. So maybe you're worried about your accent and you think, oh my goodness, my accent in Italian is horrendous. It sucks. Like, my American accent is so strong. Like, why should I even bother speaking, because I'm not going to improve my accent. And this can really hinder you as well. So with self-interrogation, you take a look at your belief and think, all right, am I exaggerating? Is this true? Am I being overly negative? So, you don't have to say that my Italian accent is wonderful. That can be too positive, but you don't want it to be too negative either. So you think, okay, my Italian accent isn't perfect, and that's okay. It can be improved, and I'm accepting that. So if you think of a more neutral statement, you're going to be less worried about it and more accepting of the reality. And then after that, you can kind of figure out, okay, my accent isn't the greatest, but it's not horrible. I can still communicate, but I can still work on it. This next one is also really important. It's having conversations about foreign language speaking anxiety, because as I said before, most language learners do experience this at some point during their language learning journey. And if you're feeling really nervous about speaking, maybe someone else in your class is too if you're in a language learning class. So if you talk to other speakers about it, hey, I'm scared about speaking because I'm afraid others will judge me, and then your classmate might say, hey, me too. And if you talk to that with your peers in your language class, you know, maybe you'll find out, hey, I'm not alone in this. Everyone feels this way. And maybe I don't have to feel so scared about speaking in front of everyone because we all are a little bit nervous. So it's not just me. You can also talk to your language teacher about it, and maybe your language teacher might take some steps to say, hey, like before class, and say, hey, you got this, it's normal, and maybe they can even give you some extra resources on how you can overcome this. And even if you're not in a language learning class, maybe you're living abroad in another country and you're kind of learning as you go, learning by living and experiencing the country, and you're not in a language learning class. So if you are with other expats maybe, or other international people in this country, maybe talk to them and say, hey, like, this isn't my native language, but I'm living in this country and sometimes I get nervous speaking to native speakers. And that person might say, hey, you know what, so do I, but the longer I've lived here, the better I've felt about it. Or you could even talk to your native language speaking friends. So if you live in France and you have some French friends, maybe ask them, hey, like, I get nervous speaking French. And they might say, hey, you know what, don't worry, your French is fine. Don't worry about your accent, you know. In English, like, I feel nervous too. So maybe if you have conversations with other people, you'll learn that, hey, I'm not alone. This happens to everyone. And the last tip I have for you has helped me as a learner myself, and this is a tip that I use in my classroom as well, in my own English speaking classes. It's to learn phonetics. So I have taken a few French phonetics classes, and after that I feel a lot more confident speaking French because I know how to pronounce French words now. So if I open a French dictionary and find a random word, just by looking at it, I'll be able to know how it's pronounced. Also, because of these classes, I've practiced speaking out loud and have learned the intonation and how to sound more natural speaking the language, and that has really helped as well. Also, when to use formal versus informal speech. So knowing all of that, like how to speak, when to say what, how to pronounce these words, has really helped me feel more confident in my own speaking. And I definitely think this works in the classroom as well. I've noticed a lot of improvement with my own students at the beginning of the semester and at the end of the semester, what they've practiced and how they feel more confident speaking afterwards. And there is something called the International Phonetic Alphabet if you're more interested, which is there are different symbols that relate to different sounds. So for example, if you're learning a language and you want to know how this certain word is pronounced, just type it into an online dictionary like Word Reference, and at the top near the definition of the language, they'll also have these weird little symbols, and that's the phonetic pronunciation of it. So that's really helpful as well. Alright, thank you so much for watching this, and before you go, just remember that you got this, we're all in this together. We all have struggles speaking foreign languages sometimes, but you know, it happens, that's life, and you got this. And let me know in the comments below if you have any tips for speaking a foreign language that I didn't mention in this video, and don't forget to give me a like and subscribe if you want more videos like this. À la prochaine! Bye bye!